And yes, hi. I started with the word and. That's something my editor tells me not to do, and yet I do it all the time. So this is a tag video. I was watching Nicole's Law 00's accent tag post, and I thought it might be interesting to talk about accents. And hers was a Southern accent, which is very familiar to me because my both my parents are from North Carolina, and so they have very sort of twangy, kind of accents, and I've heard that all my life. And I was raised in New England, particularly New York and New Jersey, but I've kind of been grown up all over, and I've also had this sort of element of my life that I'm an only child and spent a lot of time around women. So I have a tendency to have sort of a feminine quality to my tone at times, which is interesting. And I love the idea of how accents actually form for based on your childhood or where you've lived, and I've lived in I've lived in Europe at times, and I have been in Asia, and have lived really all over the United States, and spent the majority of my time in Washington, which has a very accent neutral kind of a quality to their language, like they're all newscasters here, which is weird. Although what I have found in working with lots of people in this area is that the further you get out into the hills, where sort of people are living on property and it's very poverty laden here, the accent sort of reverts to it's almost Southern. It's very odd. Anyway, but I'm not sure how to describe my accent, or if I even have one. I think it goes in and out because at times, if I'm around my parents a lot, I'll start saying y'all and all those other things. And I say y'all all the time, which is something that you never get rid of if you've spent any time in the South, I don't think. But this accent tag is kind of fun, and I'll copy it out for you because there are certain words that people say differently, apparently. And I have a list of them here, and I'm going to go ahead and say them. I say aunt instead of aunt. That's a Southern holdover, I think, because aunt is very New England, and I just never kind of picked up on that. But I have Aunt Suzanne, and that just kind of flows. I say root, not route. Wash, not wash. I know people just say wash, but I say wash. Oil, theater, iron, and as opposed to iron or iron. Salmon, caramel instead of caramel. Fire, water, sure, data, ruin. Crayon, toilet, New Orleans, pecan, which is, I think that's odd because I will say y'all, and I have lots of like Southern holdover stuff, but I know my parents both say pecan, and it's always been pecan to me. Both, again, probably, spitting image, Alabama, lawyer, coupon, mayonnaise. I guess people say mayonnaise. Do some people say that? Syrup, pajamas, caught. All right. So I don't know if you guys say, do you pronounce those words differently? That's kind of interesting. I'd like to see how a lot of people are pronouncing these words. So there are questions too that come with this tag. What is it called when you throw toilet paper on a house? And we've always called that TPing. And we've done more than that though. We took one of the other things we did, instead of just like putting toilet paper through the trees and things like that, we took a big box of bargain price maxi pads, and we just took the stickers off and put them all over our car. Not our car, but all over our car in this driveway, which we thought was pretty funny, but that's because we were sick perverts. And that was, I don't know how old we were. Probably 35. No, like 17, 16, something like that. Anyway, number 2, what is the bug that when you touch it, it curls into a ball? And we always call those roly-polies. So that's what those are called. 3, what is the bubbly carbonated drink called? And I always called it soda. My parents call it Coke. They're Southern. That's kind of a thing. Everything is a Coke. Dr. Pepper's a Coke. So that's interesting. It's the same thing with Nicole's Law 00. She was saying that too. What do you call gym shoes? I call them sneakers. I'm thinking that's New England, though. I think that's where that comes from. Sneakers. I don't know. If you're from New England, what do you call them? Because I think that's where that comes from. Number 5, what do you say to address a group of people? And this is where I always say y'all. And I do. It's always y'all. Number 6, what do you call the kind of spider or spider-like creature that has an oval-shaped body and extremely long legs? We call those daddy long legs. And what I've always heard about daddy long legs is that they are the most venomous spider on the planet. That their venom is the deadliest, but because they're so tiny, they just don't bite you. It's just not something that can happen. I guess it can't happen. Number 7, what do you call your grandparents? And I have sort of lived an entire life not really remembering my grandparents a whole lot. I remember my grandma, and so I call her grandma. But she was the only grandparent that I ever had. I never met my grandfather or grandmother on my father's side. And so grandma is the only thing I know. Number 8, what do you call the wheeled contraption in which you carry groceries at the supermarket? And I just call that a shopping cart. That's it. Number 9, what do you call it when rain falls while the sun is shining? We call it a squall. And but I live in Washington, where rain is a very it's a very constant thing, and so you start to learn to call things differently. Because it's mists, it does a lot of different things up here rather than just rain. And so when the rain cuts through sun, that's actually a very dangerous thing in Washington, because it tends to cause a glare on the roadways. A huge amount of accidents happen during the squalls. So that's what it's called. And I know a squall is also a brief storm that happens at sea, but we call them squalls here, and that's what they call them on the news as well. Number 10, what is the thing you change the TV channel with? And I call those remotes. Anyway, that's it. That's all of the questions, but I think that language in particular and how it changes from region to region is really interesting, and I'd love to hear what you guys think of that and how these things change. And I'll be watching your videos.